This is the story of four strangers who would somehow come to help a young German soldier find his love. But only if these five characters survive the horror of the trenches.
So my name is Johan Faniz, and I am the producer of Valiant. It's a game about World War I.
Between 1914 and 1918, inside the trenches of the Western Front, millions of men fought, lived, and died.
Valiant Hearts is a puzzle adventure game. It's a 2D game, and it's a very artistic game, and it looks like a comic book. It's a bit like an interactive comic book, in fact. Yes, you're going to play five characters from different nationalities. There is a German, there is an American, there is a French, there's a Belgian nurse, and there's a UK aviator. I cannot say too much about the story, I cannot spoil the story, but there will be a lot of cross moments, cross paths between these characters, and they will help each other. Some of them, of course, will die because it's what happens during that war. Yeah. The gameplay, the puzzle mechanics are based around two main pillars, which are the dog and the feature of the dog, because all characters, all those five characters, they will be with the dog and they can control the dog. Like, I mean, control, like you can call the dog and then you can ask him to do things. Sometimes he will do them, sometimes not. So this is a big feature in terms of gameplay. And the other one is the throwing feature, so you can take some objects on the ground. It could be a grenade, it could be a can, it could be a bone, it could be a lot of things. And you have the ability to throw it so with precision, with a gameplay of, you say, ballistic. And then you can put those objects somewhere to trigger something, and to, you know, it's a puzzle. So to trigger something, at the same time you have to send the dog somewhere else, and you have synchronization, and sometimes the dog will be stuck in a bad situation and you have to do something to save the dog. So it's really interesting in terms of puzzle. It's really interesting. We choose the World War I setting because it's a strong moment in our history. It's important for French, for many countries, in fact. So we wanted to remind people and the young generation what happened during that time. And we think that telling a story with five characters from five nationalities is a nice way to tell the history of World War I. And we don't want to make any judgment, and we don't want to have a bad guy, a good guy. There's no judgment in that game. It's really important to stay, to stick to the life of those five characters.
First, there's Emile, a French prisoner of war who ends up peeling potatoes for the Germans after a single bloody charge. Then there's Lucky Freddy, the American volunteer who always seems to find his way out of danger. Anna, the rose of the trenches, who's knee-deep in mud and blood, next to her boys. And there's George, the British aviator who lied about knowing how to fly. And finally, Carl, alone, lost in the maze of trenches and sick with love for Marie, Emile's daughter.
Because this war is a bit complex. It's considered sometimes as a silly war because it was mostly an industrial war. It was for economic reasons. It's a bit complex, but that's why we want to show normal people, normal human beings in the middle of this war. Everybody in France, almost all men were mobilized to go to that war, to the Western Front. So we want to show this reality of normal men going to the front and fighting, even if they don't want to fight. And for them, for the French soldiers, the German soldiers were not bad guys, they were not enemies. And This is the important thing about this war. It's complex to understand. This is why we want to tell this, the history and the story of those 5 characters in an accessible way and in a light way. It's more easy to make things understandable if you draw them this way instead of a realistic 3D game, for example. So that way, it's more simple for us to tell stories and to explain things. And also, it's important to reflect the reality that was sometimes, some days, they were fighting, they were bombing, and some other days, they were just waiting and living in the trenches, and there were no fights, so they still have to live during that 4 years. So there were also joyful moments during the war. So we want to reflect that, to have joy moments, some light things happening, and sometimes very sad moments with people dying and this kind of thing. We started with this art style because Paul, the art director of the game, was drawing characters like this, with these stylized shapes, and all characters are a bit fat. They have if you look, you don't see any eyes. In the game, you will not see their eyes. The only eyes that you see are the eyes of the dog. And this kind of stylized thing are really, really important, and they make this game quite unique. In fact, it's a comic book game. We could say it's the message is a bit humanist message, and that even in the middle of this war, all people stay human beings, and maybe that's the message of this game. Valiant Hearts is launching in 2014 on digital platforms.
Some made it. Some did not. Here are their stories.